The Taliban shows Biden who's boss. Biden's American media honeymoon may be over, and meet the world's biggest Karen. She is the governor of Oregon. Welcome to the show. Check out the new set. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah. Joe Biden's disastrous pullout of Afghanistan continued this week with a looming August 31st deadline to get our citizens and allies out. And Joe Biden admitted it's really up to the terrorist jihadist Taliban where we go from here.
We agreed that we will continue to close cooperation to get people out as efficiently and safely as possible. We are currently on a pace to finish by August the 31st. The sooner we can finish, the better. Each day of operations brings added risk to our troops.
Yeah, because they're terrorists trying to kill them.
But the completion by August 31st depends upon the Taliban continuing to cooperate and allow...
Yeah, it's Taliban. It's not Taliban, okay?
...access to the airport for those who were transporting out and no disruptions to our operations. In addition, I've asked the Pentagon and the State Department for contingency plans to adjust the timetable.
Yeah, contingency changes constantly because they had no plan, you see. And that's cool because just last week the Taliban said they wouldn't stop anybody from leaving Afghanistan.
This is that we are assuring the safety of all those who have worked with the United States and allied forces, whether as interpreters or any other field that they've worked.
Thank God they had that hand sanitizer there because I know these guys like to be real hygienic.
With them, as for their talents and their skills, we do not want them to leave the country.
No, because we can enslave them and use them.
We want them to serve their own homeland. As for the contractor, there was perhaps...
Well, that's good enough for me. Wait, they're actually saying something completely different this week?
They have opportunity. They have all the resources. They can take all the people that belong to them. We are not going to allow Afghans leave.
Wait. You just said last week that you would let them leave.
And we will not extend the deadline.
Oh, okay, whatever you say there, Mr. Taliban guy. And it's being reinforced with news reports.
Afghans have been banned from fleeing their country on evacuation flights. A Taliban spokesman said the road that ends at the Kabul airport...
I can't believe they break their word. They're such respectable people.
...airport has been blocked. Foreigners can go through it, but Afghans are not allowed to take the road. This sudden announcement means that thousands of people who've worked for the international coalition and others who fear persecution...
are pretty much screwed.
...under the extremist movement are now trapped.
With the prospect of thousands of Americans and our allies being kidnapped and or murdered in Afghanistan, Joe Biden focused on his Rooseveltian spending spree.
Before I update you on the meeting that I had with the leaders of the G7,
which lasted 10 minutes, by the way, and they want us to stay past the August 31st deadline, and Joe Biden said no and then turned off the Zoom call.
Earlier today, I want to say a word about the progress we're making on the Build Back Better agenda.
And on spending us into oblivion and destroying your kids' futures.
Here at home. I just got off the telephone with the leaders in the House. Today, the House of Representatives taken significant step toward making a historic investment that's going to transform America.
Yeah, all those things you keep promising never happen.
Cut taxes for working families and position America.
That's a good one. They're going to spend $5 trillion and you're going to cut taxes.
American economy for long-term growth.
Sure. Hey, you ready for some hot sake? The White House spokesginger lashed out at a reporter this week when asked if the president was stranding Americans in Afghanistan, which he is.
By pulling the troops before getting these Americans who are now stranded. Does he have a sense of that?
First of all, I think it's irresponsible to say Americans are stranded.
No, I think abandoned might be more appropriate.
They are not. We are committed to bringing Americans who want to come home.
Screwed.
Home. We are in touch with them via phone, via text, via email, via any way that we can possibly reach Americans to get them home if they want to return home.
There are no Americans stranded is the White House's official position on what's happening in Afghanistan right now.
I'm just calling you out for saying that we are stranding Americans in Afghanistan when we have been very clear that we are not leaving Americans who want to return home. We are going to bring them home.
Now, here's an ABC TV report saying just the opposite.
We received this audio message from a trapped teacher, a U.S. permanent resident, who says even with the proper paperwork, he couldn't get through. For his safety, we're not naming him.
It is insane. There are people holding their American passports. There are people that work with the Americans, and they're not letting anyone in. We are in huge danger.
That's not what Jen Psaki says.
And we need help.
And with tens of
Liar, liar, house on fire.
thousands of Americans and Afghans who've helped the U.S. desperate to get out.
And here's Jen doubling down on stranded.
And I know that you said yesterday it's irresponsible to say that Americans are stranded in Afghanistan right now. What do you say to the American citizen in Kabul that Fox spoke to this morning? Her name is, she's going by Fatima. She says, we are stranded at home. For 4 days, 3 days, we didn't hear anything from anywhere, and they're saying to go to the airport, but we're not being given clear guidance. Our emails are getting ignored.
Well, why don't I convey to you exactly what we are doing? And I think what's important to note that I also said yesterday in the full context of my answer,
She's being kind of Jen Snarky there.
which I put out today, was that we are committed to bringing Americans home who want to leave. So let me explain to you how our process works. And there have been some very good questions, including from you and from others, about this.
It starts with pulling your head out of your rear end.
One, as we've said, this is a dynamic number. We're working hour by hour to refine and make it precise. Understand your desire and interest in having exact number of American citizens.
Yeah, because he's a journalist, you see. But now Jen is saying if you want to get rescued, you're going to have to give her a call.
If we are not in touch with this individual, give me their contact information and we will get in touch with them.
I'll call him and say, hey, yeah, it's Jen Psaki. Just wanted to say you're screwed.
If any of you are hearing from American citizens who can't reach us, give me their contact information and we will get
Just call me, maybe,
in contact with them.
and I'll circle back to them.
Our estimate of the overall number of American citizens who are there can increase because folks are just now responding to our outreach who may not have registered. It can also decrease because people leave, they don't tell us they leave, or individuals who may reach out and convey they have the documentation needed, don't.
Or they're just hiding from the Taliban who want to kill them. And ultimately, she admitted, yeah, there are probably going to be some Americans left behind.
Say after the withdrawal, it's done, it's declared, it's done. Everyone's
I think she plays with her hair when she's a little nervous.
If one U.S. citizen was suddenly discovered, saying, hey, I really want to get out and I'm stuck, who knows where, somewhere in Afghanistan or in Kabul, has got any problem, would this trigger a
I came back from vacation for this.
diplomatic, military, all hands on deck type thing to get that person out, whatever the date?
Our commitment continues to be to U.S. citizens. If they want to leave, we will help get them out.
No matter what the date.
Again, we expect there could be some, but I'm not going to get into it further.
Wah, wah. Too bad, so sad, I guess, for guys like this.
How are you going to get out of that country?
So, for me as a father, I always have to I have to weigh the risks of these different options. So to me, the airport is very dangerous. The Marines do not have control of the northern gates. And for whatever reason, the British,
I would have never come here, but the real estate prices are just unbelievable.
Are not allowing Americans with, American passport holders to just come in.
Coming up, what's the American media saying about Joe Biden's premature pullout? I'm talking about in Afghanistan, by the way. It's not very good. Stick around. And I'm back. Make sure to check out the Newsmax Daily podcast with me, Rob Carson. It's available on over 50 digital platforms. If you want all the information, just go to newsmaxtv.com/podcasts. So what are Joe Biden's water carriers, the mainstream media, saying about the Biden Afghanistan pullout?
This remains very much a disaster. And one of the contributing factors here is when you listen to the president, he is saying things that simply do not comport with the reality that we are seeing with our own eyes.
That's not positive. Are you sure we have the right American media?
That you hear...
is he talking about Donald Trump?
Ian Pannell describing, for instance, when he says that every American can get to that airport, there hasn't been an issue with that. That doesn't comport with the reality that you heard Ian describe. It also doesn't comport with the reality that the State Department has been...
In other words, that's a lie.
Issuing in guidance that we have seen from the State Department to Americans in Afghanistan, encouraging people to make the trip to the airport to be evacuated. But even in the State Department's guidance, this is a cable that went out just on Wednesday, the United States government cannot ensure safe passage to the Hamid Karzai International Airport.
I guess that would mean that Americans have been stranded there. Yeah. Well, that's only ABC. How about NBC? Surely there's a lot of love over there.
if you step back and you look at what is going on, this is the United States after 20 years. This war used to be called Operation Enduring Freedom, and it's turned out not to be enduring, and they're not leaving behind a society.
This presidency is called Operation Enduring Moron.
That is free. It is only free according to what the Taliban says it will be free. The Taliban,
and we can trust them,
promises that it will be free.
Of course, their promises are as good as gold.
So you could also look at the humiliating moment of American humiliation, right, leaving, forced to leave on the Taliban's clock and with the Taliban's good graces. So tactically it makes sense, but I'm not sure how history will. I think history will judge this moment as a very dark period.
And don't worry, Biden voters are still in his camp, including these free Afghan protesters in Washington, D.C.
If you were able to speak to President Biden, what would be your message to him?
Honestly,
are you out of your freaking mind?
I regret my vote for you. I really do. The blood of innocent men, women, and children who fought for you is on your hands.
I believe it's also on your voting ballot.
And I hope it haunts you for the rest of your life.
Biden, you betrayed us! And I hope that you voting for Joe Biden does the same thing. I don't mean to be cruel, but come on, you voted for him.
Biden, you betrayed us! Biden, you betrayed us! Biden, you betrayed us!
Are you seeing a lot of the Biden voters that you may know feeling the same way about this situation?
We're all big supporters of Biden.
We couldn't scrape those Biden bumper stickers off our cars soon enough.
All of us feel the exact same way.
But surely no one in Afghanistan would blame Joe Biden for the chaos.
Mr. Biden, you did this. You planned this. You made the deal with the Taliban. This is the consequences of it. This is the repercussions of it. Mr. Biden, it's your ill calculation. You were against Trump. Now we are against you. Go to hell, Biden!
Did he say Joe Biden go to HE double hockey sticks? That's not love. Here's Representative Steve Scalise telling reporters what a strong president would have done.
Well, you can even look at last year. You know, President Trump wanted to withdraw American troops. He was very vocal about it, but he also made it very clear with conditions he put in place that he was not going to let the Taliban take control of the country. So every time the Taliban would push, he would push back with overwhelming force. Not with equal force, but with overwhelming force, and ultimately the Taliban pulled back. And he protected American lives every step of the way.
And he also made General Soleimani go splat.
Not seeing this from this president. 3 other presidents before Joe Biden have ultimately dealt with this conflict. It's not been an easy one, but the main objective was, number one, to avenge September 11th and to ensure that we didn't have another terrorist attack on American soil. And you know what? For the last 20 years, thank God we haven't had an attack on American soil. But we're all very concerned about that, right?
Yeah, we're pretty much back to September the 10th, 2001, except for now they have more of Afghanistan under their control and $85 billion worth of our weapons. Way to go, Joe. Here is NSA spokesman Jake Sullivan bizarrely saying the world should admire the chaos at the Kabul airport.
How do you think the world is looking at the United States right now?
So on the second question, you look at the scenes at the Kabul airport, and what I see is the United States securing an airfield at the risk of several...
Their duty-free shop there is incredible.
...thousand American troops to facilitate not just the evacuation of Americans, but to facilitate the evacuation of third country nationals from friends and foes alike, and to facilitate the evacuation of tens and thousands of people who, for humanitarian reasons, want to leave Afghanistan.
Who the Taliban is no longer let leave. And of course, that is not what Sky News is saying about Kabul airport.
This is an emergency now. It's nothing to do with process. They're just trying to save lives. Tens of thousands are trying to get through. At the front, they're being crushed. Paratroopers pulling people from the mayhem. Medics rushing from the next casualty to the next and the next.
You've been to O'Hare in Chicago on a busy weekend. It's not much better.
Calm down. Calm down.
Dehydrated and terrified. The soldiers spray the crowd with a hose, anything to cool them down. Men, women, and lots of children.
I wouldn't say this is something the world should admire.
Please call someone.
And then what we feared the inevitable.
But don't worry, everything's going to be all right, right? Here's Barack Obama's Afghanistan ambassador giving us a snapshot of the future of the world and Afghanistan.
It has created a global crisis, quite frankly. It has emboldened violent Islamic radicals. And I think we're all going to see the fallout of that. Certainly in Pakistan. They championed the Taliban because they felt they had no choice. Well, I might be doing a little bit of high-fiving, but boy, it's not going to last, because what is happening in Afghanistan isn't going to stay in Afghanistan. This will be felt around the world.
Coming up, Kamala cackles while Afghanistan burns. Stick around. And we are back. Make sure to check out the Newsmax Daily Podcast with me, Rob Carson. It's 5 days a week. Just go to newsmaxtv.com/podcast for all the digital platforms where it's available. Vice President Kamala Harris caught heat for cackling again as she approached reporters before leaving the U.S. for a meeting in Vietnam.
What's your response to reports of Americans? Hold on. Slow down, everybody.
I just can't get enough of her laugh. Actually, I really can't stand it.
I want to talk about two things. First, Afghanistan.
And while she was there, she addressed the most pressing concern we should all have, not getting your Christmas presents this year because of climate change.
The stories that we are now hearing about, the caution that if you want to have Christmas toys for your children, it might be the time to start buying them, because...
Do they have Christmas in Afghanistan?
The delay may be many...
Do they know it's Christmas? Okay.
Months. So across the board, people are experiencing the issue. And of course,
no Christmas presents.
The climate crisis is fueling.
Because of climate.
A lot of this, when we look at the stronger typhoons that have disrupted shipping lanes.
Guys, I'm not that worried about climate crisis. After all, Santa Claus does have reindeer, not snow deer. Thank you.
And sea level rise, which threatens port infrastructure. As
yeah, it hasn't happened, actually, because if the sea rises in one place, it rises across the entire world. And it's not happening. Here's the BBC pointing out the irony of an American VP going to Vietnam while the president creates another one.
Awful timing for Kamala Harris. I mean, she's not a very experienced or confident foreign policy operative anyway. You can kind of see that in the very careful way that she's phrasing what she's talking about there. She's having to fend off questions about Afghanistan, which makes the US look like an incompetent, uncaring and unreliable ally.
No!
For all of that, remember, she's going to Vietnam. I mean, of all places, one of the two countries visiting, you just can't help but make the comparison.
Yeah, I caught that too, like about a week ago.
With what happened 46 years ago.
Yeah, a lot of people are realizing Joe Biden is not up to the task of being president, but they dread Kamala Harris being in charge just as much, if not more. Here's the president admitting that that eventuality may happen sooner than you think.
My two daughters were born that you can do anything a man can do. It's one thing for somebody to say...
Like sexually harassing interns like you did in 1993?
...that and keep pounding that in the head of their 5 granddaughters as well. But guess what? Until they see it, until they watch, it becomes real then. That's why, by the way, it happens to be in Asia for me right now, but that's why we have a female vice president of the United States of America. We're going to have some presidents pretty soon.
Yeah, it could be pretty soon. Maybe next week. We'll see. While all this is happening, Nancy Pelosi held a $30,000 per plate fundraiser where no one wore masks, only the lowly servants.
We had in store for later, but for now.
Those people sitting at the tables are rather monochromatic.
The question was asked this morning by Ambassador.
And so are the servants, oddly enough.
About young people and how
it's almost like you don't want to breathe their air.
Reaching out to young people in the area. Well, young people, we always ask them, how do you want to be reached out to? And one of the main...
Nancy then rushed back to D.C. to address a problem that's pretty much on the bottom of everyone's immediate concern list right now.
Then when we talk about challenges that we have in our country, we have these fires in the West, floods in Tennessee. President...
yeah, pretty much all this stuff happens pretty much every year.
Approved a major disaster declaration for Tennessee. Middle Tennessee region has had flooding and deaths. In California, we had the river, in the West, we had the River and Dixie fires, which the president has declared major disaster for as well. And so we have to understand how Again, many of us think if we can address the climate crisis, we can deal in a better way.
And finally, an epic Biden takedown commercial from the Trump Organization entitled Surrenderer in Chief.
America is back.
Highest inflation rate in the United States. The southern border is collapsing. The climb of COVID infections.
We amplify our power. We summoned a new strength.
This is a recruitment ad. Should we be embarrassed?
Diplomacy is back.
Now the Taliban are back.
Kabul is not in an imminent threat environment.
It's going to be the Taliban
Other than that, he's doing a great job.
running everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
They own the whole country now, the Taliban.
The Taliban are now in complete control of Afghanistan.
Complete chaos. How did President Biden get this so wrong?
Well, first of all, the mission hasn't failed yet.
Guys, I want to thank you for joining me this week. Sometimes, some weeks, it's really hard to be funny. This week has been particularly trying. My thoughts and prayers are with our Gold Star families and our veterans and all of those who served in Afghanistan and on any military campaign that we've committed to. You did not serve in vain. It's just the man in charge who's screwing up the end of it. God bless you. God bless our police and our first responders. And until next week, guys, don't catch the stupid.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.